everyone, and welcome to this Omni Edition election special. I am Dan York, and with me now is Doc Dougherty, the city manager for the city of Garden City. And we want to talk about the bonded roads millage that will appear on the August 2nd ballot. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
So a little bit of history. Back in 2018, the residents approved a bonded roads millage for approximately $15 million. Yes. To do road improvements that have been done over the past, now really we're into our fourth year, correct?
Yes, correct.
And it's time to consider whether or not we're going to renew that.
Yes, it is. If you look back at our original interview, one of the things we said was that this was not a one and done. It specifically was designed that for 5 years, let's do as many roads as we can do, and then we'll ask the residents 5 years from now if they'd like to go forward with another bond. And we're at that point now. There's no elections coming up for the next 2 years. This is the last election until the presidential election, which at that time the bond money will be running out. So our request is a little early to make sure that we can start planning for the future roads. So we feel we've been very successful with the roads that were done. We did many more roads actually than we claimed that we were going to do. We did several different treatments, which we could talk about in a few moments. But the big point is now it's the residents' opportunity once again, just like the first time. Are you happy with what we did? Would you like to see more roads done? Let's make that decision to move forward or not. It's up to the residents. It's not something the city council makes a decision on or staff. It's up to the residents, give them the vote.
All right, so let's talk about that for just 1 second to clarify. We're in 2022. We have a primary now. We have a general election in November. Mm-hmm. But there are no scheduled elections at all in 2023.
No, not at all.
Okay. So we will actually collect for the current bond millage that exists. The last time we will collect for that would be in 2023 in the summer tax bill.
Yes.
But should this pass, we would not collect on this until 2024.
Correct. There's some misconception that this would overlap and taxes would double for no reason. No, this is to just extend it. Once it closes out, we start the new one. Otherwise, we'd have to wait till the next election in 24, the presidential election. And by the time we're able to collect and start scheduling, we would miss at least a year, if not even longer. So the idea is if there's interest by the voters to move forward, let's already plan on that at this time. Otherwise, we're going to be behind the eight ball if we wait.
So the current program that we're in, when it is done, we will have actually touched, and now that's not, doesn't mean major reconstruction, yes, but we will have touched 40 miles of 100 miles of roads.
Yes, yes. So there's several different treatments that we've been working on. The easiest to understand is replacing a full concrete road, replacing a full asphalt road. Those are the easiest ones. We also did some sectioning, which is concrete squares. As you ride down the road, some areas were chunked out. They were just replaced fully with a square. That's called sectioning.
Which is really effective on some streets.
Oh, absolutely, especially for concrete. Because sometimes the concrete, you have little areas that could be fixed. You don't need to take out the entire road. A lot cheaper of a treatment. Then we also have, what we did was chip seal, which is spray patching is another treatment, but I'll come back for a second, is when you fill in the holes, potholes, you just fill in with spray patching. And a lot of times people saw that on, say, Maplewood right now. You see the cracks were filled in with spray patch. Well, chip seal is when you spray patch an asphalt road, and then you come in with the stones and put a cover over that. A total temporary use, which I'll come back in a moment. But then the sixth treatment is the crack seal, which is really just filling in the cracks of concrete
to extend
roads.
The life of a road.
So when you mentioned about 40 roads, it's not as if we replaced 40 miles of our 100 miles of roads. We touched a lot of them for a temporary basis. So like chip seal, I think is a fantastic opportunity to take a road that's about 50% dead. It's going to die more and more as time goes on. Fill in those potholes, cover it with stone, and then cover it with a chip seal on top of it. It's Cape Seal.
Cape Seal, right.
Yeah, so it looks like a new road, but by no means is it a new road. And we tell people from the start, when you see Cape Seal, it is not a new road, but it stops your tires from blowing out going through these landmines. It's still certainly bumpy, because it's not...
The bumps are on top instead of on the bottom now.
It's not a brand new road by any means, but what it does is give us more time, another 5 to 10 years, to be able to come back to those roads. Otherwise, if we didn't do that at all, we'd just be cold patching, and the roads would be a mess. So,
and chip seal, Cape Seal is fairly economical.
Cheap, very cheap. We were able to do miles and miles of roads for like $800,000. I believe we did about 15 miles of road. Again, temporary basis. Some people look at it as a permanent road. It is not. But one of the things we've done throughout the community now is we help the next generation, of leadership because of the fact that the roads that we have rip out, asphalt roads, Farmington Road, perfect example. We went down to the bottom and started from scratch. We had to do that because there's not a solid base. If we have a solid base on an asphalt road, we could take off 1.5 inches and put 1.5 inches back on. You see that in Ohio.
Which is called mill and fill?
Mill and fill. In Ohio, you see highways, they're constantly just skimming off the top and putting a new layer down. You'll see that treatment was done behind City Hall. The 6 roads right behind City Hall between Harrison and Central, they were able to actually be mill and fill. They had a solid base. They were $100,000 for 3 blocks. 3 long blocks, $100,000 for each one. If we redid those roads from scratch, you're probably looking at about $500,000 to do those roads. So the difference of 100 versus 500. Now when they may do Farmington Road again 25, 30 years from now, they just have to skim off the top and put a new skim on top. It won't cost anything near what it costs today to redo Farmington Road. So we're looking at it economically, how long-term we can be as efficient as possible. So every time anyone sees a new asphalt road, you have to know in the future it's going to be a lot cheaper to replace.
So we did about, by my estimate, we did about 3.5 miles of brand new concrete streets, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you include Maplewood in there, which was a major project, and some of the other concrete streets that were major projects, that has a huge impact on the community as a whole, because Maplewood was the last of the half-mile roads that was in really just atrocious shape.
Yes, correct. And that's at the recreation center where most people were attending activities. It was a terrible road.
We did about 5 miles of concrete sectioning, about 8.5 miles of crack sealing, and then about 13 miles of the Cape Seal, chip seal, whatever you want to call it, and about 5.5 miles of asphalt roads, of which a lot of it was back here behind City Hall that just got completed here in the last couple of days.
Yes, the mill and fill, as I mentioned, is a great way to go in the future.
Okay. So in the past, before the current bond issue we're in, the city received about $700,000 a year from the state for road construction, and that was all the money we were spending on road construction.
Before this bond issue, it was about 1 road a year. If people recall, back in 17, 16, it was part of Hubbard was done. The year later, part of Craig was done. There was no bulk roads being completed. So you often hear people say we should just forget the bond issue, just go with use our budget money. Well, the budget of the city really hasn't changed over the last couple of decades or so. It's pretty much flat of what we do. There is no millions of dollars that we can just take out and rebuild roads. But roads as infrastructure is something that has to go on forever. It's not something where you could fix once and walk away for 50 years.
Right.
So doing 1 road a year, which say 1 mile a year, in a city that has over 100 miles of roads, it'll be 100 years until we get back. And I'm pretty sure by then all of those roads are going to be shot. So really, to invest into ourselves, a bond issue is the way to go.
And previously, without the bond issue, homes were assessed, although a very minimal amount.
Yes.
Homes on a street that was reconstructed were assessed. About 5% of the cost of the road is what the assessments counted for.
Yes, correct. So it's about $27. If you owned a home and the road was being redone, you were charged $27 per foot. So if you have a 50-foot lot, it was just over $1,000.
Right.
And but that, of course, didn't pay for the road. So people often do say, I paid for my road, nobody helped me. Well, actually, most of that road, $1 million for that road, was not paid by a few houses with $1,000 payment.
So using that term assessment again, in a different vein, there have been some that argue that this should be done as an assessment like we do for street lighting, and that everybody should pay the same amount rather than a millage rate like we do now.
Yes, and that would be illegal. We can't charge per house. We have to charge by their actual taxes because of the fact that an assessment by a city, which would not need a city vote, actually, with just the council people, council can actually say, let's do an assessment, and here it is, the lighting assessment or so. But it has to be an equal benefit across the board. So we have a lighting assessment in our city. Everybody has some type of light on their block. Some blocks may have 4 lights or 3 lights or even 2, depending on the activity and traffic, but there is lighting throughout the entire city. To do a road assessment, everybody must receive some kind of new road or so in front of their house.
You'd literally have to do all 100 miles of roads at the same time.
Which we can't do, obviously, and some of the newer roads aren't going to be redone anyway, so it's physically impossible to do it. So you cannot actually do an assessment per house, and we've heard that sometimes at council meetings, people would say everyone should pay the exact same for the roads. It's just not legally possible. It has to be based on your percentage of your value of your home.
And currently, the average taxpayer, and as it would be with this renewal. You can't really call it a renewal because technically it's not.
Yeah.
But $225 per home is the average price that homeowners are paying.
Yes, which is almost exactly the same as it was for the last 5 years. So there's no drastic increase. But keep in mind that's the average number, which means homes that are valued less, half the homes in the city are going to pay less than that, and half the cities in the home pay actually, in the city pay more than that. So that's something to look at, that per house on average, it's that cost. But it's not a new tax, it's the same tax,
Right.
but it is the same amount.
And that's why this is not called a renewal, because it's a brand new bond.
Yes.
And to clarify, this is more of a Brian Marciniak, our finance guy's question, but to clarify, the $15 million means we go out and bond $15 million for the improvements.
Yep.
So the cost of this is more than $15 million, but by spreading it out over the 5 years, the interest is minimized.
Correct, yep. And also, as you mentioned, the state money, we would receive that 1 mile a year. That's added into here, so we can actually even do more roads than just what we're asking for in the bond. It helps us to be able to leverage that money to get more things done. And in the bond request itself, the referendum, it does talk about curbing, sidewalks, other pertinences, water underneath the roadway could be done. We also have a water fund where we tend to replace water pipes that we did in front of the high school, I believe, past year. They had about 8 individual main breaks over time, which shut down school. We have money that we can replace those pipes, but when it comes to roads, we can also use that road money for things. Some people have questioned the road money must be only used for roads. Well, if you're replacing the road and you have to replace the pipes and the sidewalk and other things, that is all included in the referendum, and that's not a hidden concept. We'd say that we want to put it towards the roads as much as possible, but there are ADA compliant intersections on corners that have to be put in when the road is done. It's not ADA to do the whole street, sidewalks, but it is to do the corners. So sometimes you'll see a road finished where just the corner has a little sidewalk plat.
Okay, so were this to pass, again, not a new tax, not really, and everybody pays, again, on average about the same thing, but this will vary from house to house.
Correct.
So the numbers that we present now for the current, or the new bond that we're hoping to propose, or we're hoping to pass, includes about 9.25 miles of concrete streets, but there's some major connector roads that will be touched.
Yeah, the big part of this next bond will be Maplewood and Marquette, and both of them are wide roads and double wide roads because you got the median in between them. We're also doing a number of roads throughout neighborhoods that's already planned, but those two take up a large chunk of this next bond, for the fact that those are 2 roads that everybody drives on. At some point, people are driving on Marquette or Maplewood, and as you drive on those roads now, you see there's a lot of help that needs to be.
Yeah, the last winter did a lot of damage to Maplewood especially.
Yes, and it's only going to get worse. As, like I said, some people say that they're against this, they're not going to pass this, they're going to vote against it. I'm not sure what the next step is after that when they say they don't want to fix infrastructure, because it's only going to get worse. And Maplewood's a perfect example of the road is just deteriorating more and more from the high school down to about Henry Ruff. Actually from Inkster all the way to Henry Ruff. So this bond would take care of 2 major arteries that we've been trying to keep alive with duct tape and glue, and it just can't be done anymore. So again, when who benefits from this, people will benefit if a road certainly is done right in front of their house, but they're certainly going to benefit other roads around their house. And that was one of the things I talked about in the first bond, was it is a team sport. Everybody working together for this. You can't individually say, well, my road was just done, so I'm done with anyone else's roads. Or my road's not on a list, therefore I'm against everyone else getting a road. It's not everyone else getting a road, it's the whole community. It raises property values when somebody's looking to purchase a home in the community and they're driving down nice roads to get there. That raises the value of the house. And I guarantee the house value can go up a lot faster, a lot higher than it will for the cost of these roads. So anybody that's looking to possibly sell in the next so many years, 10 years or give or take, you probably want to put more money into the roads because your property values can continue going up. But it is a team sport to the fact of there's many other roads you drive on other than just your road. And as the community cleans itself up, you're going to see benefits not only in price values but also quality of life.
And Moeller and Craig, again, 2 major connector roads, would essentially, except for the part of Craig that's already been repaved from Marquette south, both of Moeller and Craig would be repaved entirely.
Yes, they would be fully redone, and in turn they would be done to the point in the future then we just have to mill and fill those roads. But
Okay.
this first time, it's going to be a lot costlier because it's base. We have to redo the whole base.
And with the exception of Maplewood, because that was an asphalt road, what be it as it were, that was basically a dirt road that we turned into concrete.
Yeah.
Everything else was, if you had asphalt, it was replaced with asphalt. If
Correct.
you had concrete, it was replaced with concrete. And the streets that had the Cape Seal or the chip seal were, you could call them blacktop roads, but they're really more of an asphalt,
Yes, they were.
country road, basically, some of those.
We're still going that direction. I personally, I like asphalt more than the concrete because, again, with the mill and fill concept, you can treat it very easily, and it's always generally smooth. Where concrete has the every so many
seams,
points, the
right.
cracks that you have to put in there for expansion joints. But long term, that's just it gets worse over time. But people have their different favorites. Of course, if we try to change everything to asphalt, I'm sure people would be upset because they think concrete is better. But cost-wise, it's very similar, at this point.
All right, so again, primarily you take the same approach, $15 million in bonds that are sold
Yes.
by the city over the period of 5 years. They're not all sold at once.
Correct.
So it does minimize the interest cost a little bit.
Yes, it does. And the point of this also is every 5 years, the residents can make a decision. We can go for a large one that goes over 20 years like they attempted back in 2016, 17. But 10, 15 years later, people are going to wonder, was that a good idea or not? Here, we're asking for a 5-year chunk. If they're unhappy with the next phase, then they vote against it. If they're unhappy with this one, then they vote against it. Our position is just that we can put it out to the people. The council's not making the decision, staff's not making the decision for this tax. It's the residents themselves. And that's, I always felt was good government, is let the people decide what they want to do. And if they're happy with what was done, compared to what we said we're going to do, compared to what we did do, I think people are going to be impressed overall.
Okay, so if you want to see what roads were done over the last 5 years, you can go to gardencitymi.org/roads. That's gardencitymi.org/roads to see the progress that's been made. And also, if you want more information on this as well as the election in general, gardencitymi.org/vote, gardencitymi.org/vote. All right, well, Doc, thank you very much for coming and talking to us, and we wish you good luck with everything.
I appreciate it.
All right, thanks for watching this election special of Omni Edition Garden City. I'm Dan York. Good night, everybody.